techniques. Dear learners, you need to develop or adapt instruments for data gathering for guidance and counseling. Use the instruments developed/adapted for data collection. Process data collected. Conduct group and individual interviews and observations, and keep anecdotal records of learners. Instrumentation in guidance and counseling. We need as much information as possible from learners in order to make a success of guidance and counseling. It is when most, and perhaps all the information is in that we can take a global look at the problem and offer meaningful guidance and counseling. The tool for gathering information is known as the instrument. Such tools include tests, questionnaires, inventories, interview guides and observational schemes. Just as the thermometer is an instrument in the hands of the scientist, so also is the questionnaire the instrument in the hands of guidance counselors. For data collected to be useful, the instrument should be valid and reliable. In this section, you will learn to develop instruments for data collection and adapt existing instruments for your case. First, let us see the different types of instruments. Types of instruments. Several typologies exist for classifying instruments. For example, instruments can be grouped on the basis of what they measure, e.g. cognitive achievement tests, affective attitudinal inventories and questionnaires, psychomotor practical skill tests, and b. how they measure, e.g. power and speed tests. For the purpose of this module, we shall adopt the scheme presented in the following table. The following techniques help assure good communication with young people during the counseling session. Create a positive and friendly first impression. Establish rapport during the first session. Show empathy and reassure the young client. Eliminate barriers to good communication, e.g., negative attitudes, poor listening, not allowing youth to express fears or ask questions, being judgmental and impatient, etc. Use active listening with the young client, i.e. acknowledging, confirming and asking clarification from the speaker. Provide information simply, and use visual aids as much as possible. Ask appropriate and effective questions and use open-ended questions. Allow youth to ask questions and seek clarification. Recognize and take advantage of teachable moments. The trend of the development of school counseling in an international context, based on a review of the 3 articles on school counseling in the United States, South Korea, and Japan. Some observations can be made about the trend of the development of school counseling in an international context. These observations include a. From non-professionals to professionals, b. From position to program, and c. From a remedial orientation to a preventive and developmental orientation. From non-professionals to professionals. In Japan and South Korea, the requirements for school counseling personnel have become more stringent. These 2 countries have been striving for the establishment of formal positions of professionally trained school counseling and guidance personnel for years. For example, in South Korea, school counselors were initially disciplinary guidance teachers. Although their title was changed to career counseling teachers in 1990, their roles were more or less the same. They were even given teaching assignments like other regular teachers. Worse still, senior teachers could apply for counseling teacher positions, after they have taken 2 to 3 related courses. The lack of understanding of the nature of counseling and related job skills made them unprepared for the work as school counseling professionals. Fortunately, in 2004, the need for full-time specialist in guidance and counseling was advocated. In 2005, more than 300 full-time registered school counselors were appointed in schools. These counselors are more professional as they were trained formally as professional school counseling teachers, having the skills and expertise to carry out guidance and counseling in the school context. This is a positive change from non-professionals to professionals in the development of school counseling in South Korea. In Japan, guidance and counseling in schools were initially taken up by clinical psychologists. However, as they did not receive internship training in schools, they lacked understanding of the school personnel and cultures. In recent years, they have to receive training to earn enough credits to keep up their credentials as school counselors. This is a positive move, because guidance work is handled by experts who are familiar with the school context. In addition to clinical psychologists, class teachers are important personnel in guidance work, because pre-service and in-service training is given to them. They may study student cases, refer problem cases to guidance teachers, and learn how to counsel from their peers. In 2008, social workers were introduced to schools to assist guidance and counseling work. These show that Japan is undergoing a struggle as to who is the best professional to carry out guidance and counseling work in schools. As for the United States, Gisbus 2008 has described the recent development of individual student planning in his article. He emphasized that individual student planning is not only collection of students' records, be they hard or soft copies. Rather, students need to be contacted either on an individual or a group level on which they can share their needs and goals with the school counselor. Although Gisbus did not explicitly state the need for more professional school personnel, the practice he described can show that school counseling work is carried out by trained, qualified professionals well informed of the counseling practice and ethics in the United States. From position to program, Gisbus 2008 posited that to make school guidance work effective, emphasis should be placed on the implementation of school guidance as a program on the whole, rather than the sheer establishment of the school counselor position. In the 1970s and 1980s, 3 models of school counseling and guidance work that shared the same emphasis were devised. Gisbus 2001. In one of the models, Merrick 1997 delineated the characteristics of developmental guidance and counseling work. They included a. Provision of programs for all students. B. Guidance curriculum be organized, planned, sequential and flexible. C. All school personnel be involved. The second model, developed by Johnson & Johnson 1991 in the 1980s, emphasized the development of students' competency. The acquisition of competencies by all students was the major concern. The third model, developed by Gisbus and Moore 1981 in the 1970s, was a comprehensive guidance program model. It consisted of an organizational structure which includes content competencies, organizational framework, structural components and program components, and resources, human, financial, and political. In practice, different time compositions should be allocated to the 4 program components, i.e., guidance curriculum, individual student planning, responsive services, and system support according to students' levels and their developmental needs. In sum, the 3 models provide us with some perspectives on the reorientation of school guidance and counseling from a problem-based approach to a strength-based approach, from a remedial mode to a preventive and developmental mode, from position to program, as well as from a single focus on responsive services to a comprehensive focus on guidance curriculum, individual student planning, responsive services, and system support. With these in mind, we can evaluate the positions of school counselors and the implementation of school guidance work as a program in both Japan and South Korea. From the articles, we see that the school guidance position was established in Japan in 1995, 10 years earlier than that of South Korea. However, as school counselors are clinical psychologists who mainly deliver responsive services in schools, it can be anticipated that this approach could only cater for the needs of a few students, whereas a broad range of developmental, experiential, and transitional issues of other children and youth is not addressed. While school personnel are providing different services to students in the areas of educational, personal and social, career as well as physical issues, the effectiveness of the services, however, is quite limited because there is a lack of cooperation and collaboration among the colleagues. With the setup of the guidance curriculum, what they are doing now could become more organized, planned and sequentially preventive programs. It is encouraging that schools in Japan receive community support as well. The setup of the school counselor system and the collaboration with the chambers of commerce and industry, school boards of education, the community support teams and non-profit making organizations that work with children and youth plus law enforcement are evidence of system supports as well as financial and political resources. These could be favorable conditions to implement comprehensive and integrative guidance program in schools in Japan. As for South Korea, the position of school counselors was established in 2005. School counselors' training and role identity issues are still the main concerns at the moment. As stated by Lee and Yang 2008, South Korea can follow the example of the United States to put stronger emphasis on the development of school guidance work as a program in the long run. Adopting the model of comprehensive school guidance program can be an appropriate and feasible direction to develop school counseling work in South Korea. From a remedial orientation to a preventive and developmental orientation, according to Yaji 2008 and Lee and Yang 2008, school counseling and guidance work seems to be moving from a remedial orientation to one that emphasizes more on the strengths of students in both Japan and South Korea. This is like the development of school guidance in the United States, where emphasis was first put in resolving students' career-related issues and other learning and behavioral problems, then lighter to guidance activities which are more preventive and developmental in nature, that emphasize students' strengths and assets. In the United States, the Comprehensive Developmental Program approach began to emerge to respond to the call for a reorientation. What began with the appointment of teachers to the position of vocational counselor has become a program. This framework has become the major structure of organizing and managing guidance in the schools of the United States. JISBS, 2001. The level of implementation of guidance programs varies from one school to another. Among the 4 program components, individual student planning seems to be the most difficult to be implemented. It is because there is a great demand on human resources to carry out effective individual student planning. Although literature on individual student planning is not very substantial in the field of school counseling, JISBS 2008 article does provide us with some updated and valuable information on the implementation of individual student planning in the United States. At present, individual student planning exemplifies an integration of theory and practice, as demonstrated by the 4 examples quoted in the article. JISBS 2008 described a number of recent studies which indicate substantial impact on student success in schools through individual student planning. In sum, JISBS acknowledged the positive impacts of the Comprehensive Guidance Program on the whole, and individual student planning activities in particular, which could help students identify their endowed talents and capabilities, striving to make the most of these to live a meaningful and rewarding life. There is continuous development in the guidance curriculum. JISBS 2001 described that guidance curriculum typically consists of competencies and structured activities which span systematically from kindergarten to grade 12. In recent years, different systemic and integrative models for the implementation of school-based prevention programs have been devised. One of these conceptual frameworks is developmental contextualism. Walsh, Galassi, Murphy, and Park-Taylor, 2002. According to this perspective, both the personal and contextual aspects of the person-environment relationship are considered in school guidance programs, because within this new perspective, a developing person not only affects his or her contexts, but the context also affects the person's course of development. Walsh et al., 2002, page 686. Besides individual student planning and the guidance curriculum, responsive service is another core component of the Comprehensive Guidance Program. GYSBERS and Henderson, 2001. As Seligman 1998 suggested, approaches to helping people have been changing. There is also a trend to conduct diagnostic activities and personal counseling with a positive, strength-based orientation. Morrison, Brown, Dinker, O'Farrell, and Furlong 2006 stated a focus on strengths represents a different perspective on how to conceptualize student adaptation to school. Page 20. Morrison et al. Presented an interview format to organize and collect information about students' strengths and protective factors in their personal and contextual domains. Student, parents, and teachers are all informants. They will be asked interview questions in the 5 areas of individual assets, family assets, peer assets, classroom assets, and school assets. Questions like, do you have any ideas about what you want to be when you grow up? For students, how do you participate in or help at your child's school? For parents, or what are the rules and procedures in class? How do the rules help students to learn? For teachers will be asked, by collecting information about family, peer, classroom, and school assets, school counselors could form a picture of the availability of protective factors that can become the basis for developing interventions. Other than this, different strength-based counseling models have appeared. As Seligman 1998 stated, treatment is not just fixing what is broken, it is nurturing what is best within ourselves. Para 5. Carl Rogers, the founder of person-centered therapy, had a strikingly different view on the development of persons and the role of counseling and psychotherapy. Rogers paid attention to human strengths rather than pathologies, to human assets rather than liabilities, to human potential rather than limitations. See Lopez et al. 2006. Recently, Smith 2006 proposed and outlined 10 stages of strength-based counseling to illustrate how the approach may be implemented. The 10 stages are: A. Creating the therapeutic alliances. B. Identifying strengths. C. Assessing presenting problems. D. Encouraging and instilling hope. These. Framing solutions. F. Building strength and competence. G. Empowering. H. Changing. I. Building resilience. And J. Evaluating and terminating. Overall speaking, in providing responsive service and designing guidance activities, there is an obvious move from a remedial to a preventive, strength-based orientation. From the above discussion, we have traced the general trend of the development of school counseling in an international context. From the beginning, school counseling work was taken up by the appointed teachers on top of their regular duties. Then, full-time positions of school counselors were introduced in the schools. This is a move from non-professionals to professionals. Thereafter, there was a further move from position to program, where the focus on the counseling personnel was shifted to implementing guidance activities as a program. There is also a move from the remedial approach of school counseling to a preventive, strength-based orientation that sees the importance of developing students' potentials and assets in order to live a more fulfilling life. The need for resources. A concluding remark. Gisbers and Henderson 2006 delineated 3 major characteristics of school counseling and guidance. Firstly, guidance is a program, meaning that guidance activities should be well planned, structured, and systematically implemented. Secondly, guidance programs should be developmental and comprehensive. The programs, when designed, should take into consideration the developmental needs of students at different stages of their lives. The content across levels should be progressive in nature. Moreover, the program should be broad enough to touch upon important issues that students could be facing in the course of development. Lastly, guidance program should feature a team approach, meaning that teachers do not design and carry out guidance activities by their own. Rather, teachers should work collaboratively as a team to formulate and conduct the activities. Based on the description above, school counseling and guidance programs in the United States, South Korea, and Japan do manifest the three characteristics. However, in delivering the programs, resources may be one of the key issues to consider. Gisbers and Henderson 2006 proposed that resources for school counseling and guidance work include human resources, financial resources, and political resources. Such a perspective can be helpful to evaluate and develop school counseling work further in the three countries. First of all, the need for human resources suggests that schools need more professional school guidance personnel. This not only means that more manpower be allocated to schools to carry out guidance duties and activities, but also entails that these people should receive appropriate and professional training before they become qualified guidance teachers. For teachers without prior training, on-the-job training could be provided to familiarize them with the knowledge and skills needed for the job as guidance teachers. Such training and certification issues are important to the success of school counseling work, as advocated earlier in this article, that guidance teachers should change from non-professionals to professionals. This is exactly an issue facing South Korea and Japan for the time being. Apart from human resources, financial resources are another important criterion for effective school counseling work. For example, individual student planning, as a focus in Gisbers' 2008 article, requires teachers not only to keep hard and soft copies of students' records, but also to meet students individually or in group meetings to discuss students' transition planning for their attainment of personal and career goals. These meetings, which involve consultation with school guidance teachers or counselors, could be expensive and imply a lot of money. Besides this expenditure, other school counseling work such as guidance curriculum, responsive services, and system support also need financial resources to sustain and implement. No matter how developed guidance programs are, as in the case of the United States, or how progressively developing they are, as in the cases of South Korea and Japan, financial resources should remain a key factor for the successful development of school guidance work. Although large expenses are anticipated, it is worthwhile to spend money on counseling programs and work, because early intervention, or more desirably, prevention, can enhance the overall well-being of the student cohorts, which is beneficial to the population's health and productivity in the long run. This is the reason why we are arguing for a change from the remedial approach to the one that emphasizes development and prevention. Last but not least, political resources are needed for school counseling and guidance programs. On the school policy level, political resources imply clear support from the upper management in the schools, such as the school supervisors or head teachers. Their support could be shown in the clear old descriptions of school guidance workers, which could help to avoid role ambiguity of these personnel. This role ambiguity issue is what South Korea is facing. Besides, support from the senior management of schools is important, because it can help to focus school guidance work on the program itself as well as the position of guidance workers. This is in line with our earlier proposition that school guidance and counseling should shift from mere positions to programs with concrete rationale and contents. On the other hand, on the government policy level, political resources of school guidance work could be policies devised by the local education department, the 1963 Educational Act, and the 1997 Elementary and Secondary Education Act from the Ministry of Education in South Korea, Learning, 2008, as well as the school counselor system introduced by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology in Japan, 2008 are good examples of political resources given from the governmental level. Recognizing the importance of government support, educators and school counseling personnel could try to solicit help and support from the government or make use of existing policies and resources to develop school guidance work. To take Hong Kong as an example, the new senior secondary education curriculum in 2009 can be an opportunity to enhance school guidance and counseling work, because when the new curriculum is implemented, all secondary schools are to keep students' portfolios in their 3 years of senior secondary education. This requirement is favorable to school counseling, because such records enable teachers to assist students to formulate their transition plans and attain their personal career goals, which is similar to individual student planning, a key element of Comprehensive Guidance Program as posited by GISBA's 2008. Conclusively speaking, whereas different countries or regions face different problems or limitations in developing school guidance programs, one important issue we have to resolve is resources allocation, which include human, financial, and political resources. Other than this, however, the government bodies and school administrators should be convinced of the rationale behind the school guidance and counseling work in the first place as the mindset and values could influence subsequent decisions to be made and actions to be taken.